You're listening to Redesigning Reality with Dylan Charles and Jeff Anthony.
All right, now here we are. Now here we are.
Now here we
Boom.
are. Go. It's my turn to go, right? Do you talk about the weather first, or do I say something clever like, "Hey, this is the Redesigning Reality podcast"? I'm supposed to say that,
I'm your host,
right?
Dylan Charles.
I'm your host, Dylan Charles.
As usual, here's my buddy Jeff.
Here's my good bud Jeff Anthony. Jeff, how's it going?
It's going great. You want to hear about the weather today?
Yeah, something happened to your audio.
meteorologist.
Something happened to your audio that was sounding better, and now it sounds kind of fucked.
Oh, thank you. That's good. That was Skype. I heard the little...
Something else. It was like it went from sounding loud and fat to wimpy. Do you remember those? Do commercials? The hefty, wimpy commercials?
Totally.
Sometimes these old commercials just come back through my mind, and I'll sing like a jingle or something, like the Irish Spring deodorant soap jingle or something, and my kids are like, "What the fuck is Dad talking about?"
Does your baloney have a first name?
OSCAR. And so I'll have to go, and thank God, this is one of the cool things about YouTube. I'll have to go to YouTube and be like, "Yo, I'm not making this up, kids. This is what mind control consumer programming does, right? I cannot forget this stuff. Like, not only can I not forget it, but it's going to continue to resurface randomly through the rest of my days. It might even be carried on to the collective universal consciousness when I die. It might even get passed back up the chain.
And not even Calgon can take you away.
Not even Calgon can take me away.
Isn't that funny? It's kind of that we were talking about all that stuff in the last show about the companies and products that were even just 20 years ago popular and all over television. They're not even around anymore. Like RC Cola and Tab. Remember Tab?
Oh, yeah. I remember Tab. It's the one where... hold on. Just popped my microphone cord out. Yeah, I remember Tab. That's the one where... was it Tab or RC that the Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future shows up in the life jacket to the soda?
Right. I'm pretty sure it was RC.
RC.
Royal Cola.
Royal Cola. Yeah, when I was a kid, my grandparents had this like classic vintage soft drink cooler. It was like from one of the original soft drink coolers that you would go to the stores, and they'd be like sitting out front, and it had like a bottle opener on the side, and it like lift top. And it always full Cokes, Dr. Peppers. So when I was a kid growing up, like anytime I wanted to, and I spent a lot of time over there in the summer, just crack the top on a Dr. Pepper, glug, chug that down, have a Sprite, have a 7-Up, Coca-Cola.
Right. Paradise for a young kid. That sound, love it.
Apparently, like these days, it's just so much shit and sugar and crap and chemicals and all this crap that I can't even imagine, how it was okay to consume any of that stuff. And then I think about, okay, well, there's people with so many mental health issues, and that problem's multifaceted, but it's got to be some kind of connection to the amount of junk food you're putting in your body.
Well, it's not even sugar anymore. Now it's the high fructose corn syrup and, mono, poly, unsaturated. How do I pronounce this? I don't have a chemistry degree, additives in the food and stuff. So I thought it was awesome. I was listening to a nutritionist, and they ask him, well, what do you look for on a label? And he's like, well, I don't buy food with labels. How about that for a start? So pretty awesome.
The best is when you see a banana inside like a cellophane wrapper. Gotta love that stuff. Humans are pretty stupid. We do some pretty stupid shit, really stupid shit, especially when it comes to packaging and purchasing and consumering, because it's... I remember a shift when I was a kid. I remember watching TV, and they used to always call us citizens. We were always called citizens. The American citizens tonight. Citizens are upset about this, blah, blah, blah. And then that was very distinct. Sometime in the 80s, they stopped using that word, and they started using consumers. American consumer, the consumers. Consumers are unhappy about this. Blah, 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 the American consumer.
Right.
It's like Jeff Anthony is the author of this amazing book, Cosmic Wizard, A Journey from Outer Age to Inner Sage. And in it, he tells the story of his some of the more awesome parts of your life and not so awesome parts. But, you know, it's kind of like your dad in that story, you know, always telling you that you are one fucking thing, you know, whether you are or not. Your dad's telling you that you are that thing, whether you're a consumer or not, whether you're, you know, an infinite, cosmically conscious, you know, meat skeleton floating through outer space, strapped to a projectile, you know, in clouds of neurons and nebulaic dust and all this. You may be that, but if they tell you you're consumers your whole life, you might just feel like it's your purpose to buy shit.
Right. If you're told anything long enough, then you kind of resemble and mimic and become the thing that you've been told that you are. And then there's the cosmic confusion of not understanding why there's a disconnect with your spirit and your mind, because they believe two completely different things.
You know, and so then you really get into the whole concept of social engineering, programming people, you know, the history of marketing, advertising, propaganda, you know, Big Daddy Edward Bernays and his whole forays. I think it was the cousin of Sigmund Freud. And, you know, his whole life's work was to figure out how to change people's behavior through mass media. So I think one of the cool things that he did was he got the American public to turn eggs and bacon into a breakfast. You know, I mean, there's so many things that we take for granted in our culture, in our, you know, traditional ways of living. Bacon and eggs, where did that come from? It's not like everybody was eating the same thing.
I would guess pigs and chickens.
Yeah, but where did the idea come from? It's not like everybody was,
yeah,
you know, getting on Twitter back then and, you know, posting pictures of, you know, Instagram and posting pictures of their meals like they do now, which is kind of fucking weird, really.
That is very weird. And I always find it interesting, as you know, when you go to other countries and you live in other countries, the breakfast is like in Vietnam, they eat pho, you know, for breakfast primarily. And then here in the States, we have all these pho restaurants now, and it's all for people to go to for lunch and dinner because bacon and eggs and pancakes and stuff like that. And then, you know, in Costa Rica, it's gallo pinto. It's like rice and beans with a bunch of celery and peppers and good stuff like that. And it's the furthest thing from bacon and eggs. And when my mom came to Costa Rica to visit the first time, she was like, who eats rice and beans for breakfast?
Ticos.
I know. So it's all this cultural differences, and probably only primarily, well, that's not true. The English breakfast, right? They're all about every kind of blood sausage and bacon and sausage and eggs and baked beans and tomatoes and all kinds of stuff, like throw everything in there.
Crazy. Just crazy, bro.
Let's talk some more about breakfast foods.
Well, usually you start this thing off by kicking it about the weather for a minute, and somehow we end up finding our way into something interesting. Breakfast, though, man, that sounds good.
It does. It's something I actually don't eat breakfast anymore because I do this intermittent fasting thing all the time where I kind of not eat until later in the afternoon and kind of eat in a little small window of time because it's supposed to be good for you. That's what the indigenos of the world did before there was restaurants and grocery stores. They ate in small periods and bursts of time and then went long periods without food because they were nomadic or whatever. So anyway, it seems to be an effective plan for me, and it works. And I think you get used to something and then you just keep doing it. And then it's weird because I go visit my family, and they're like 3 meals a day. You better get up. Breakfast is ready at 7:30 and it's biscuits and gravy and all this stuff. And my mom made all this. Oh, she's telling my kids, Jeff loved all this when he was a kid. I'm sitting there like trying to eat it because, I don't eat breakfast anymore. And I feel obligated because my mom put all this effort. And I'm just like, and then it felt like 2 hours later, it's lunchtime and you're still full of biscuits and gravy.
Yeah, it's easy in this day and age to eat the wrong things or eat too much. But at the same time, it seems to be that we're in a time where there's so many models of what perfect living is supposed to be about. So you kind of get into the situation where it's difficult to ever be happy with yourself on any given day because you're always striving for some fucking higher and higher level of perfection. You know,
The bigger and higher goal.
bigger and higher goal.
Well, and everybody has their own interpretation of what you should be doing. And I think the interesting part of it, Dylan, is at our age now, I think you kind of, at some point, settle into a routine and something that you feel like works for you. I mean, that's what I would encourage anybody to do, as long as it's not, a pack of cigarettes and shooting up heroin first thing in the morning. It's probably not the best diet, but, or a bag of Doritos and a Dr. Pepper. I had a friend in high school that was every day he drank. We were talking about all the crazy stuff. Do you remember SEMA Red? It was the knockoff of Big Red in Texas. There's all that Big Red, the red soda that stains everything red, your teeth, your mouth, everything. Yeah, he used to eat Doritos and SEMA Red for breakfast every day in high school. And I was just like, dude, awesome breakfast meal. So
yeah,
that's on the sad diet, by the way.
Yeah, I can't believe the kind of stuff we ate as a kid, really. And the reason for it was that, first of all, so much of it was new and it all tasted fucking excellent. And a lot of it was a higher quality, even like the packaged foods, the processed foods, even the fast foods 25, 30 years ago were a lot higher quality than they are today. But then you also didn't have the ability to communicate the way we do now, so you weren't able to, let people know that this shit's terrible for you. So
and it's sad to me in a lot of ways that everything's gone so commercial and so, packaged and so overly processed. It's sad to me. I remember when I was a kid and you would go to McDonald's and it tasted like a hamburger and it actually tasted good and it was fun. And now it seems like let's roll through the Illuminati drive-through and poison ourselves with what did they put, like food grade polish and lacquer. Like, are we polishing shoes here or are we eating a hamburger? It's insane.
Yeah, things have definitely changed. And so the pushback to that, the pendulum swinging the other direction is there's a lot of kids and stuff nowadays that won't touch. And I think that's even showing up in statistics about how millennials shop, what they're interested in, and the kind of support for places like McDonald's and this and that. I mean, these people are having to really try hard to adapt to get this market share back because kids these days, they know they're a little more savvy. But like I said, then you get to this weird situation where you're always trying to be perfect, and then your belief system, you evolve your belief system according. You try to adapt other belief systems into yours, and that fucks with your belief system. And then there's so many conflicting beliefs that you have that then you really boil it down, and it's like the idea that beliefs really do help create the reality that we experience, and then you ended up just being in this fucking hamster wheel of you don't know what to believe or how to feel, and you never really feel awesome. So I think a big part of that is understanding, like when you're understanding the difference between knowing something and believing something. Understand the difference between taking somebody's word for it versus having actually tried and checked something out for yourself. I've had a lot of diet problems in the past 15, 20 years. Candida, it's a whole other story that's worth telling someday, but Candida, problems with gut, flora, all these like very serious digestional issues that have almost killed me even. And so it's important to figure out what works for you, but it's also important to not develop a belief system that works against you and against your health, right? Because that's just as easily, it's probably easier to create belief systems for yourself that don't serve you well than it is to consciously create the belief systems that make your life better,
Yeah, and it's funny, as you're talking about all the stuff, I'm sitting here thinking about how, when we were kids, everything was fresh, right? Like, so you went to even a drive-through burger place, it was like good quality beef. freshly baked breads and all this stuff. And the French fries were actually made out of potatoes instead of some mealed up
yoga
potato.
mats.
I don't know what it is, and binders and all this stuff. And the funny thing now, Dylan, is you can still get those same hamburgers and steaks and food that we got when we were kids, but now it's called artisan, right? You have to go get an artisan burger at the new hipster cool burger shop that's getting grass-fed beef, and they're grinding it themselves, and all the things that were done by big industry when we were younger, but now have become unprofitable because they know they can't sell a hamburger for $14 and have their drive-through full at, from 11 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's funny how all those things become artisanal when it was just ordinary before. And now by adding the word artisanal to anything, you can charge, 50% more than it should cost as well. Because we made that cheese in-house. That's in-house cheese.
Well, there's been this ongoing struggle to, have something, to have genetically modified foods, labeled. This is GMO or non-GMO. Of course, industry doesn't want them labeled because they're afraid that if people know that it's GMO, then whether or not they understand everything about GMOs, they'll choose non-GMO because it just seems inherently to make more sense to buy something that hasn't been tampered with. So I was actually strolling through the store the other day and looking at it. Some label caught my eye. It was something that said natural or whatever, right? It's in a package, shiny, very well. It was probably right next to the bacon flavored Ritz crackers that my daughter was like, holy shit, they have bacon Ritz? That's disgusting. But I was thinking about that. I was like, they should have two labels. Right? Made with poison, and then just the label. Right, just the normal label. Cheetos made with poison. Put this one is poisonous, the other one's not poisonous. It's pretty simple. But I found
it is, and I remember when my grandmother would make macaroni and cheese for us when we were kids. My grandmother who just passed recently, she would get cheese, like real cheese, and
macaroni,
flour and milk and heavy cream. And she would slowly, in the cream and milk, melt the cheese. And then she would add flour, to thicken it up, and then dump a bunch of pasta in. And dude, it was the best. Of course, it was the best thing ever. Yeah. She put a little paprika in there and a little salt and pepper and garlic. And you just dive into that bowl and devour it. And then you get older and you get into college and your first time, your single life, and you buy that Kraft cheese dinner, they call it, and you boil that crap up and dump this powder and some milk, and it tastes like cardboard. But that's now where people's taste buds have gone. They the cheap maybe it's the convenience of it all, and they've just never had a super sweet grandma like I did that made them homemade mac and cheese.
Yeah, a big part of it is the convenience, and there's a lot of skills and a lot of knowledge that's being lost right now. It seems like we're having this great revolution with information and stuff, and everything's at your fingertips, and anything and everything is on YouTube and Google. But at the same time, we're losing a whole lot of just basic knowledge, how to live. One of those things is cooking. There's this whole internet meme about adulting, like it's some challenge to cook your own food or wash your own clothes or write a check out to pay your rent. That's called adulting now. It's not just like living. It's a thing. And so there's this whole meme built up around it about how, I can't adult today. This adulting shit is too hard. I just want to crawl back in bed and not adult today. And but the food relating food to this, the trend is that restaurants and companies are getting more creative about how they're making food and how they're packaging food, and even things like how they deliver food. You can do these like meal programs now, as an example. You can subscribe. I got 5 members of my family. We want you to bring over a box of stuff on Monday, and that has through Friday. We know exactly what to open, what to put on each plate for every meal. To me, it's just fucking bizarre. I guess it's just how the world is. It's fucking bizarre. But
it runs into the, we're in this two parent. Well, the families that have 2 parents anymore. They're both working to try to pay for all these things for their children, their mortgage, their cars, all this stuff.
But even like the younger generation, people who aren't working, I mean, people who don't have families, I mean, they're working and their lives are not centered around the cultivation of these basic life skills, right? But I found out for myself that developing beliefs about, especially something about as important of food as important as food is, like developing beliefs about what this food is doing for your body and what foods work for you and which foods do not work for you. I found that's really powerful and but quite dangerous in a way. Like my relationship with
absolutely, and we're totally on the same page on that thing. And I believe, just like you, if you have a thought system or a belief system that what you're putting into your body is poison or unhealthy, you will have an unhealthy outcome. And if I know this may sound cliche or, stupid to some people, but if you can bless anything. Mm-hmm. You can bless McDonald's and put it in your mouth and believe that, hey, you know what? This is all I can do right now. And this is all I can afford. And I need some type of nourishment. And I'm going to bless this food to nourish my body. And it will. And I'm not advocating or telling everybody just go eat McDonald's and Burger King as long as you say a blessing. That's not what I'm trying to say. But I'm trying to reinforce the thought that you're talking about. Thoughts becomes things. We talked about that before. And the more you believe something is bad, the more bad it's going to manifest inside of you.
Let me give you an example. A couple of years ago, I was having health problems that were related to candida poisoning, overgrowth, which, like I said, a whole nother conversation. But this is something that I've been kind of developing for 10 plus years. And so I was experiencing symptoms from this again, very severe symptoms, and was working on doing elimination diets where you cut down your diet basically to just nothing, very clean meats and lots of vegetables, mostly vegetables. And what I noticed was that the deeper down the rabbit hole of these diets, autoimmune paleo diets, and these other protocols to help heal and like restore the digestive system and the gut and all this, and high probiotics and all of that sort of thing. Like the further I went down this road, I started noticing that my attitude towards all foods was evolving in a negative way. And so what I realized was that finally hit me. It went pretty deep with this for a number of months. And then it hit me that I had been preventing psychologically, whatever you want to call it. I prevented my body from allowing itself to take nourishment from any food. It's fucking weird. And when I realized that, and I was able to, become aware of that and flip that in my head, then all of a sudden the changes that I was hoping to make seemed to happen really, really fast. And I was able to reintegrate a whole lot of things into my diet. In other words, I had gotten onto this mindset, this track to where I have to, there's so many things are bad for me. I have to figure out exactly what's bad for me before I can, accept anything. And so that was fucking dangerous, man. You didn't even realize it. I think a friend of mine helped me see that, and I had some medicine journeys where it helped to really, really open my eyes to what I was, how the belief systems were interacting with the actual process of taking nourishment from food, man. Pretty powerful. But
it's a self-limiting belief, and one self-limiting belief can lead to another and another, and before you know it, you box yourself into these belief systems, and you think you think that that's knowledge, but it's not wisdom. Yes, okay, you're aware that certain things are not the most beneficial to your body, but in many ways, we talked about this before too, with the vegetarianism or veganism. There's minerals and fatty acids that are in fish and beef and irons and all these kinds of things that are in all these different types of meats that your brain needs to function properly. And if you have a self-limiting belief that you're trying to save the planet or save animals and that nothing should die so that you could survive, that's all well and good, but at the same time, you can be damaging your own gray matter, and damaging your health through this knowledge that you think is going to benefit the world or you personally, and actually the wisdom that comes from, the true, I guess, necessities that our bodies have would differ from the knowledge that you think is the right thing to do. It's really interesting. The whole concept of knowledge and wisdom is something that I talk about a lot and think about a lot. And we keep bringing up that word knowledge, and in my kind of definition of that, knowledge is a knowing, right? It's something that you know, and people say, oh, like, for example, I know I shouldn't drink 12 beers tonight. And then people go out and party and do it anyway. That's not knowledge. That's a knowing. You shouldn't do something, yet you do it anyway. You're not a wise person. The wise person takes this knowledge, pushes it down into their gut, and from that center they operate from their wisdom, and they say, hey, I know I shouldn't drink 12 beers tonight. I'm going to drink a couple beers and go home, or I'm not going to drink any at all because I don't want to do that right now to myself. I know what the outcome is, and that's true wisdom, and it differs very much from knowledge. So
I was thinking about this very same question just yesterday. In fact, there's a woman that one of my associates with my website, wakingtimes.com, she's taken it upon herself to research more quite deeply into chemtrails, atmospheric spraying, HARP, scalar technologies, these, for lack of a better term, and I really hate this term, but we'll throw it out there because everybody knows what you're talking about when you say conspiracy theories. Everybody knows it. But she asked me, she's pretty smart, incredibly smart lady, and really, like I said, deep into this. She's sending me photos and stuff of cloud formations, of satellite pictures of this and that, and she asked me, do these look normal to you? And I'm like, first off, nothing looks normal to me in this world anymore. Okay, let's just get that out of the way. But I don't know. I never had satellite photos of cloud formations when I was growing up. I never have seen historical, almanacs of cloud formations at different times of year over this particular part of the coast. I just don't know. Yeah, it looks fucking weird to me, I'll tell you that, but I don't know. She's like, well, no, it's definitely this and this. I'm like, okay, well, maybe, And so this bigger can of worms, this idea of the conspiracy theory. First off, for the record, this information is fascinating to me. I love information. I love history. I love trying to understand this world, and I've realized that there's a infinite number of possible lenses that you can look at this world through, and ultimately they're all beliefs. They're all belief systems. There's very few things that you can actually put your hands on and touch to know for sure. Very few things. And so the idea of these conspiracy theories, well, they're just belief systems, and I've come in recent years to kind of let go of these belief systems I had, and some of the theories about how the political system works in America, or how the global political system works, or how the financial system works, and here and that. And while so much of it is backed by very, very comprehensible quality information, the fact of the matter is that I only really have the power to know what's going on inside my own heart and soul, And so in that regard, I'm finding that even like a healthy detachment from the belief systems involved with world views is quite important right now. Especially, Jeff, people are going berserk, fighting with each other. I mean, we've got to the point where people pretty much have decided that, in America, have pretty much decided that if a person doesn't believe what I believe, then I can harm them or even kill them. I mean, that's how far it's gone. People are so attached.
Yeah, and that used to be that was the Holy War, right? In the way back, we're going to kill everybody that doesn't believe in Catholicism. We're going to kill everybody that doesn't believe in Christianity. They're all heathens. And now we're going to kill somebody if they're not a liberal.
Right.
Really? Like, that's insane. Like you said, and I think we were having a conversation one time about that you were at a coffee shop or something, and there was like this
nice
group of like
ladies,
elderly,
nice
looking grandmothers, old ladies, and they were talking about that somebody should kill Donald Trump because they don't agree with. And I remember a time in school when they were like, "Man, if you talk about killing the president, you're going to jail."
It's like saying the word bomb in an airport.
And it doesn't matter. You shouldn't be talking about killing anyone. You shouldn't be talking about killing human beings, especially over political issues, food issues, religious issues, what sports team they like, what church they go to. Not to hit on a bad topic there, but it's just, man, you're right. They're going bonkers. They're losing their minds. And it's this whole thing we've talked about before, the creation of crisis, right? And people not having something and being unfulfilled and not having something that they believe in, which is a lack of belief in themselves as well, and self-esteem. And, it's a doomer's mentality. And then they go and they wreak havoc and impose doom on society. It's really sad. I think I've said sad 3 or 4 times in this podcast today.
Well, that's a more family-friendly word than some of the words I've been using.
Yeah, I'm going to say something right now. Last night, I was watching our last episode, and Kai, my 9-year-old, is like, "Daddy, is this show you do with Dylan a family-friendly show?" And then Dylan drops like the 10th F-bomb in a row, and I realized why he was saying that to me. I was like, well, let's put it this way. When Dylan comes over to our house to visit, do you cover your ears or go hide in another room, or does Dylan talk like that when he's over here too? And he's like, yeah, Dylan talks. And I'm like, and Dylan's a good guy, right? And he's like, yeah, I love Dylan. Dylan's a great guy. And I'm like, well, then, and Dylan has a family. And so it's a family-friendly show. Just don't drop F-bombs in your little 4th grade class.
All right, we'll dial the F-bombs back if we can. I don't know. I don't really know if it's fucking possible, man.
There it goes.
I don't
Let
care.
it fly.
Yeah.
It's all good, dude.
Well, this is an exercise in just doing your thing.
Yeah, let it rip.
Authenticity, But regarding belief systems and the conspiracy thing, because that's been on my mind a lot. In fact, I wrote an article about this a week or so ago. Simple, like there's so much going on. I mean, you and I we talk at least a couple of times a week, and in the last, since Hurricane Harvey, really, it's been one giant negative, terrible disaster after another, over and over and over again. And every time we talk, we're like, so we're going to do a show. We're going to talk about the latest mass shooting. We're going to talk about the latest terrorist attack. We're going to talk about the latest weather. No.
We don't need. Here you go, Kai. We don't need that shitstorm.
We don't need that shitstorm,
man.
But
you're right though.
But the idea that a few simple spiritual concepts can help you sort of navigate all this and help you and still enjoy life and keep it together. Letting go. Looking at the darkness, like accepting the shadow, like being able to acknowledge the shadow self, to let it breathe and do its thing, to let it out of the closet, to let it out and have its day. The recognition that it's part of you, it's part of the collective conscious, it's part of all of us. And so when dark, terrible things happen, it's a sign that this part of us has perhaps been repressed and needs to show its face because there's something we need to learn. There's some push forward that we need to make. And the other one was gratitude, just being able to practice gratitude. What do you have? Who do you have? Simple things. Letting go of your attachments, letting go to your expectations for outcomes. And I see this, when I'm surfing through Facebook or when I'm just out talking to people or when I'm, whatever. You see people finding so many ways to split hairs with each other. I had a lady try to draw me into a confrontational political conversation not too long ago. Oh my God. A friend of mine's mother. And she hit me with the Trump and the Russians thing. Mm-hmm. Wow, man, she was going off. She was just going off. But Trump and the Russians, collusion. And I'm like, man, there's so many bigger issues. Like, there's so many real crimes that your government's engaged in. Real terrible things. And we're talking about this. And all I could think of to say was, all the Russians I know are really nice.
There you go.
All the Russian people I know are fucking awesome, you know. I really like Russians.
Diffuse that Russian bomb. I'm with you, bro. I had the same situation on Saturday. It was after my son's last soccer game, and we're having this pizza party that's supposed to be about the kids' last game. And I sit down next, I sit down next to my son's coach, and he just starts railing on corporations and the tax breaks they're getting, and they're trying to turn Eugene into Vietnam. And I'm like, wow. First of all, wow, dude, what's the matter with Vietnam? And do you not like Vietnamese people, or what is going on here? What are you talking about? And I just told him, I said, hey man, look, as far as I know, I've never seen so many homeless people on the streets as I see here in Oregon. So if the city is trying to give tax breaks to companies to come in and build homes, there's also a housing crisis here. This is the most depleted real estate market in the United States. There's been no new construction since the bust of the real estate market in 2007, according to my realtor. And I just bought a house that I felt like was way overpriced because there's no inventory. So if these people are going to bring jobs and build homes and employ some people that need work and then lower the price of real estate for the common dude like me so that we could all live in houses, what's the problem if they get a little tax break, and all these companies, they bring in these illegals. And I was like, whoa, a minute ago, you're the liberal guy who is all wanting to open the borders and let all the illegals in. And now you're talking about how these companies get tax breaks and hire illegals. It's such a conflict and people contradict themselves in the same breath. And if you are astute and you just sit back and listen and you're not triggered and on fire about your political issue, it's almost a waste. Then he brought up the next thing, and I just looked at him. I was like, I'm gonna just not reply to that because believe me, you don't want to hear what I have to say about pretty much anything.
But isn't that what you're talking about? Isn't that one stage in the process of awakening? That you're coming into knowledge. You're realizing that there's other serious viewpoints that may resonate more with your experience, your knowledge, your history, and you're finding that it's empowering to take a stand. That's part of the growth process. Having been through that myself, I mean, I've been through that. You were saying?
No, I was just saying I agree with you that it is part of the process, but at the same time, you shouldn't try to. If the guy would calm down, he'd probably realize that I already think a lot like he does. I'm not a pro big corporation guy. I'm not pro shut down the borders. We're all immigrants, right? And we're all. And I lived in Costa Rica. Nobody kept me out of there.
What I was gonna say, yeah, because I've been an immigrant in other countries, so my perspective is totally different. But what I was gonna say was that I remember a time in my own political awakening, because for the political awakening seems to be a few tiers below spiritual awakening, right? You have this sort of dumbed down contemporary consciousness where people are unaware of what's going on at all at any level, right? As they slowly wake up, they become politicized and hopefully don't get stuck there. But I remember at a time when I was operating in that mindset, I was a political activist during the Ron Paul campaign in 2008, and we were moving out of the town I'd lived in my whole life, and so we had dinner with my cousin. All the kids were there, and his wife was there, and my wife was there, and it was this big thing. And he was 110% Obama, and I was 110% Ron Paul, and it just wasn't possible for me in that stage of where I was mentally to just be like, hey, let's just hang out and enjoy each other's company. Instead, it turned into this giant fight, giant ordeal. We've gotten past it, but definitely, it took us a couple years to kind of start to really like each other again. I mean, smoke coming out of each other's ears, just raging mad red face at dinner with all the kids because you're so right. And
well,
so
and
to
you feel,
go through that,
justified, right? You're justified because
I had it all figured out. I had the answers. Yeah, he had it all figured out. He had the answers, and they weren't the same answers. And so,
and you're never going to convince the other party to come onto your.
It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. Nope. But that's the really like. That's where the rubber meets the road of divide and conquer, geopolitical strategies, where you can get people, families, just like to split hairs over some stupid temporal issue, but to the degree they actually fight with each other, and you'll see these rare headlines pop up now and then of so and so's own mom got stabbed at Thanksgiving dinner because they couldn't come to agreement on which senator to elect or whatever the fuck and
turkey or ham. Ah!
Fighting over food makes more sense than some of the stuff they got us fighting over now. But that's it, man. That's where the rubber meets the road. That's where the actual divide and conquer happens, when you can get people in the same family. But it's a state of consciousness that sort of limited awareness, but 100% committed to this limited awareness, 100% full on belief in how I see things right now. Seems like a stage to me, and I don't even consider that. I love politics. I love watching what's going on, but it's from such a detached perspective that when I see people fighting on Facebook or whatever, or dropping hints that they want to take over the conversation at a party and send it in the direction of the Federal Reserve, or talk about Trump and Russia collusion, or talk about Hillary and the sexual predator Bill Clinton, whatever it is. When I hear people talk about this stuff, I'm just like, okay, cool. Well, how can we navigate this up and beyond this? Because this ain't going to go anywhere. And you've seen that too.
And how can we elevate? How can we literally elevate the conversation and take us to something that does matter, and that. Not saying that these things don't matter. They matter to a lot of people, but we're not going to change the fact that politics is divisive. Okay, you're not going to convince the person across the party line from you to believe the thing that you believe. That's something that people have to come to their own conclusions on. Like you've seen I've seen people that are Catholics become Christians, and I've seen Christians become Catholics, and I've seen Catholics become Buddhists, and they came to that conclusion on their own. And I've seen people that were conservative Republicans that are liberals now, and vice versa. And nobody convinced them; they convinced themselves. And if we all just would let people live a little more, we could elevate the conversation. Because what happens when you attack somebody? People don't like being questioned. You talked about belief systems. Man, don't question anyone on their belief systems and ask them for some kind of historical merit or justifiable cause for them to believe in that, because that is, wow. You want to talk about cognitive dissonance and extreme frustration and anger, man.
Well, but it's the information age. Any viewpoint can be instantly backed up by documents and articles to prove your position.
Right, or debunked. Yeah, there's all the debunkers.
Everything's bunked and debunked. A great example of this is the flat Earth guys, right? I've got, in the realms that I work with on the internet, I've got some people that are pretty deeply into this idea that the Earth is flat, and we've all been hoodwinked. And if you really actually pay attention to the science and stuff, you'll figure out that nothing makes sense except that the Earth is flat, and it works. Okay, well, I gotta feed my kids in the morning,
Right.
I gotta take care of my body and my mind. I gotta be happy. I gotta be present. I have to be aware of what's going on in my life and my sphere. I gotta be paying attention when I'm driving. I've got to make sure that whatever I'm thinking on is not causing me to rot internally or spiritually, and that's giving me reason to wake up in the morning and be happy and thrive in this awesome, amazing, beautiful planet.
You're gonna upset some of these people. You just said in your sphere, which would be round, not flat.
Yeah, I mean, but
and I don't know. I had a telescope as a kid, and when I looked at the moon, it didn't look like a sheet of glass. And when we looked at Mars and Venus and stuff, it didn't look like a sheet of glass either. But anyway. I saw a funny meme about that. Some kid, it was a video meme. He put a marble on a sidewalk, and he's like, "It's not rolling. The Earth is flat." Boom.
Yeah, that's real. The guy really Really believes that.
I know.
And I've seen videos, but the thing is, I'm so deep in the information world. I have been for so long. It's been a hobby of mine for 25 plus years, is to pay attention to alternative news and conspiracy theories and read history books and ponder what all is really fucking going on. And the flat Earth stuff is the presentations on it. I've watched a lot, hours and hours and hours and hours of programming on flat Earth. The presentations are fucking fascinating. And when I'm watching them, I want to believe. I believe, but it's just a belief, man. I can't go out and test the trajectories of planes. I can't rise up a mile in the air and try to look and see what the curvature of the horizon is. I don't have the access or the capacity to get in a boat and drive to find the ice wall. I don't have that. I can't do that. So is this? Am I going to let this?
Said all that because you drug me down that rabbit hole with you, as you tend to do, because Dylan does have access to a lot of interesting characters and their interesting information, and he likes to bounce it off of me a lot. He's like, "Oh, here, marinate on this for a week."
Yeah, I told you I sent you some of those videos, and we're like, "Man, that shit's fascinating." I don't,
it absolutely is fascinating. I totally was on board with you. I was like, "Man, this is fascinating shit," but man, I'm hungry. I got to make some dinner.
You know what? What's also fascinating? What's also fascinating is that the Earth is round theory, right? That's fascinating too.
Well, it was fascinating to me being in the military and being in the Navy, and you get on a ship, man, out in the middle of the ocean, and there's nothing but water all around you. And I could see where people thought the Earth was flat because it's just this plain of water everywhere you look, and there's no land. But the really fascinating thing is when certain cloud formations are in the sky, and again, we're both not meteorologists. I can't tell you what exactly they are, cirrus clouds, or I have no idea. But the point is, when you look on the horizon, you could see at certain times of day, you could see the bend and curvature of the Earth falling into the water. And that has always stuck with me as a young 18, 19, 20-year-old dude in the Navy looking at that and then wondering, okay, I could see the plane of water, but now I could see this curvature falling into the water. How did people ever think that the Earth was flat? And how do people today believe? When you sent me that information, it drew me back to those memories of being in the Navy and being on a ship in the middle of nowhere. And I was like, well, these dudes making these videos, have they ever been out in the middle of the ocean like me in the middle of the Atlantic or Pacific and seen what it looks like? Because I've been there. And so it's making it hard for me to make that leap in my belief system that the Earth is flat, Yeah,
once again, though, belief system, it's a belief system. I've had people approach me and they're so confident that their belief system is reality that, they'll damage relationships, they'll threaten people, that's what's weird to me, seeing a lot of this stuff, the social justice warrioring stuff going on, even the Antifa and the white supremacists and all these other losers out there basically just fighting, they're just stirring up shit and just trampling on other people's rights to exist. Seeing all this going on, it's kind of just strange seeing how powerful belief systems really are. If you believe,
it is strange, and these people are, excuse me for calling some of them morons, but man, the Antifa thing that you're talking about, these people are supposed to be anti-racism,
fascism, right? Anti-fascism. That's just by going by their name, yeah. And they want, but they also claim that they want equality for everybody. But then you saw the thing in Texas where they're at the Capitol and they're balling out this black guy who's a DPS officer there who's just trying to keep the peace. And they're like, "Oh yeah, man, you're horrible. You're just a slave. You're part of the system. They got you. And I'm like, man, you guys are contradictory. And this is all over the internet now for millions of people to see. And you're balling out the very people that you presume to be in favor of. It's man, if it wasn't so insanely stupid, it would be hilarious. It's hilarious. You got to admit, people are funny. I'm of the opinion that what's really going to help the world, what's going to make the world a better place, isn't going out there and resisting resisting the projection that you have of what it is that's wrong with the world, fighting against that. But if you had a culture of spiritually awakened, conscious, evolving human beings that didn't turn to confrontation to solve all their problems, didn't have this military, just never-ending conflict mindset, from the top down of our culture. I'm convinced now more than ever that what's really going to change the world and make it a better place is, happy people who are content with their lives, but also powerful people. People
True.
who are
true power is love. True power is forgiveness,
right.
And we don't have that in our current world. We have a president who is begrudging and lashes out at everyone that doesn't agree with him, or it's something as foolish and childish as sports, or this guy doesn't like me. They said something bad about me. And all of a sudden, this guy's going to Twitter and all these social outlets to say these negative things.
Yeah. I mean, he's a child. He's a man-child. Backing up here. Trump. What a phenomenon Trump is. I've watched this. What Trump has done to the media is fucking amazing to me, because I've been really paying attention to media for many, many, many years, and with my work, with my website, I don't talk about Trump. I don't run articles about what a douche he is, or how he's feeding fish and whatever. I don't do that. But so many media outlets have turned, news has become just bashing one individual. It's fucking mind blowing. I don't really even like to talk. I don't like to talk with anybody. I'm like, there's so much of that going on. All right, we know Trump is, less than perfect. Let's just leave it at that. I'm content with leaving it at that. But he's the sign and the symptom of other problems that we do have, and he's the part of a system that's, got a lot of really big problems, bigger than him. And so what can we really do today to make this world more livable? And
we could learn how to forgive him and forgive others and not hold grudges. And then maybe if we shared that abundance of forgiveness and love, people wouldn't take to walking into private establishments and shooting people because they have some grudge or they feel entitled, because the people at the very top are what's the behavior that they're carrying out is going to be observed and then repeated by the masses, because it's almost like they've given them permission to act this way because, they act this way. And you can be a total asshole and become the president, and you can lash out at everybody who doesn't agree with you and say whatever you want to say and do whatever you want to do. And that's the way it should be. And it's totally the complete opposite of the way it should be. And, telling people that you should care the most about your country or your thing. I mean, that's not unity. That's divisivism at its greatest example, right?
Yeah, I see. If you take the case of somebody walking into a church, whatever, and shooting up the place, killing dozens of people, where does that come from? Why is this happening once a month now? Right? I mean, it's basically the same. The answer is what I was just talking about a minute ago: is that people are corrupt spiritually. Right? They're stuck on belief systems and corrupted spiritually. Then you factor into that, like, the whole apparatus of information sharing that we have nowadays. And this is why at my website also, I don't really cover the latest details of all the mass shootings. You take any one of these people and they've grown up in a celebrity culture where it's this cult of celebrity, worship celebrity, get your name in the paper, get your name in the internet, whatever. While at the same time, violence programming. I mean, violence programming from day one. So a myriad different ways, infinite number of ways. There used to be a number, and this was like 10 plus years ago. I remember them saying that the average kid, by the time they were 12 or 15 or whatever, had seen 40,000, dramatized murders and movies and television programs and crime stories and all this and that, and so that's just the dramatic stuff. So we live very much in a culture of violence, and you couple that with spiritual spiritual degradation, and then you have the media basically taking, anytime this happens, like splashing this person's face up on the screen, working every detail. I saw something from CNN posted on their Twitter page or whatever the other day, and it literally was like, it looked like you could have just swapped out mass murderer for NFL, and the information was presented the same way. It could have been like, most passing yards, number one, Jerry Rice or whatever, right? Number two, whoever. But
right.
It was mass murder. Stephen Paddock, 58.
The most deadly mass shooting in American history. Yeah.
But presented as a way, and like, this is cool, and that's...
look what this guy accomplished.
Man, it's fucking sick, and it's twisted, and it's knowing how the media works, knowing how much money can be made, and seeing like these mass shootings. I mean, oh my God, man. That is a payday. I guarantee you there's bloggers, there are news organizations sitting in their conference room with their editors and stuff going, man, this is good for business. This is great stuff. Give us another one of these. Have somebody run somebody else over the truck. The weirder, the better. Hey, we can't solve it. That's great. Maybe people will think maybe people can call it a false flag or conspiracy and spin that angle, this and that, and so this meme of framing and dissecting and distributing disaster news is, man, it's not doing us any good. But
and what is that? That's our new that's our new commodity that we export from the United States, is mass shootings and public devastation, and a degradation of our culture and our beliefs and our the common man, the kindness to the common Joe, Jim, Larry, Bob on the street. Like, it's insane, man. Like, and to perpetuate that it's not about getting to the bottom of the information and why it happened. No, it's about perpetuating another story and another story and another story to keep the masses watching and to get them to consume. It's just another form of consumerism. Yeah. Because we're going to flash television commercials in between the news breaks and show people what to buy, and then on a whole nother level, on a spiritual level, they're going to consume this garbage information that's feeding their soul absolute shit.
But it's interesting because we all this stuff is presented to us in various forms in our smartphones, in the flat screen TVs all over the airport. This information is presented to us, and the frustrating thing is that none of the stuff that comes through these media are anything that you can touch or anything that you can experience or anything that you can do anything about. Not a single bit of it. And so the helplessness involved, the frustration builds and continues to mount and continues to, and there's nothing that you can do about any of this stuff. It's just crazy, man. Like, you can't, something shitty happens and it gets spun, to infinity for the next week until something else shitty happens, and so I think that's really what I see, is that it's more important right now than perhaps ever before for people to protect themselves, protect their psyche, right? To draw back from this, to consciously choose what to realize when they're clicking through stuff and information that, okay, this isn't anything that it's just triggering the little dopamine firings and stuff in my brain that tantalize me and give me the random rewards that I'm looking for. But there's really nothing I could do about, let's say if I knew the truth about the 9/11 conspiracy, there's nothing I could do about it. There's no way that I could go in and prosecute Dick Cheney, for example. There's nothing I could do about it. So how is it that I can use my time and my consciousness and my capacity and my own power today in my own life to actually, make my life better and make people's lives around me better? Because that's ultimately what we're all looking for, right? We don't want these terrible, shitty things that happen all the time, do we?
No, and you're right. And you and I have made a conscious effort to avoid talking about a lot of these issues on our show because we don't want to go down the negative rabbit hole that is already being thrust upon so many people. And I think today we've naturally landed on this subject because
It's there.
This is something that, and it's something that you and I have talked about maybe not kind of steering around issues, but using this show as a platform to show people what you can do instead of just watching the stuff, instead of just consuming the information and then having to live with it. Talk about the resolutions to it. Talk about the love and the forgiveness and the acceptance and the understanding that we all need to have more of. And use your platform instead of feeling hopeless and helpless. Use the platform that you do have. I realize that maybe not everyone is as up to date or informed on the information as you are doing what you do, or as I am by proxy of being your friend and being interested in the same things as you. But anyone has access to the internet and a microphone and a camera, and even if it's your iPhone, and whatever you can do to put something positive into the world, and to promote a positive message, it all builds momentum. And then, we, the people, the masses, can shift what it is that we tune into and what it is that we appreciate and what it is that we support, right? And then all of a sudden, just like is already happening, people cut the cords, people stop watching ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, on and on, all these little alphabet soup of garbage, and people start watching things on YouTube and things on Facebook that are motivational and inspirational and spiritual, and can actually help turn the tide and show people, demonstrate love, demonstrate compassion, demonstrate forgiveness, and show you the steps that it takes to get there. Because believe me, it's not easy. And that's a lot of what my message is in Cosmic Wizard is, forgiveness isn't just something that you think in your mind and you're like, oh, I forgive that person. Without the acceptance, the understanding, and clarity, you can't forgive anything. You can't forgive these atrocities. You can't forgive, the silly little skirmish you had with some friend or your wife in the morning before you went to work. Until you can accept your role in it and your responsibility and your triggers, and get clear on that stuff, you won't even understand what you're doing. So that's our way, I feel like, through Waking Times, through my book, through this podcast, through Redesigning Reality, helping people redesign their reality. And let's make that shift, And I encourage anyone else out there watching or listening to the show to do whatever they can, in however big or small way it is, to try to help, shift the momentum into positivity, love, and forgiveness.
Yeah, I have a tendency personally to really look into the abyss of this kind of stuff and look so deeply into it that I have at times fallen in. I think that's a good metaphor for this stuff. The thing is, when you're looking into the abyss, your focus is narrowed down into just the darkness. If you were just to shake that off and look around, there's so much else going on in this world, and so much good stuff originating from within. So we're going to wrap up this fine, fantastic hour of Redesigning Reality, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for tuning in, Jeff. It's been good talking to you.
Always good talking to you, Dylan. And please go and check out us on our many media outlets, wakingtimes.com, journeytoinnersage.com, redesigningsreality.com, and YouTube and all that good stuff.
It's good for now. That's a lot of .coms. So we're out there. We're on the internet now. Come check us out. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.
Peace.
You've been listening to Redesigning Reality with Jeff Anthony and Dylan Charles.
Mukabanya, mukabanya.